Hey guys, John Rettinger here with round one of the iPhone 3GS versus the PSP Go. You can also consider this the iPod Touch versus the PSP Go. Now some of you might be wondering why I'm putting these two devices head to head since they seem so divergent. Well, I tend to disagree. I think they're actually competing for a very similar market share. A lot of people are buying iPod Touches and even iPhones exclusively for the App Store to get access to those thousands of games and applications that are available in the App Store. Now, by proxy, people are buying the PSP Go for, obviously, the games, and it's got a lot of additional functionality on top of that. It can play video, it's got a web browser, and because of those features, I think that they definitely overlap. Now, the PlayStation Store that's found on the PSP Go gives you access to a back catalog of fantastic PSP games. And with those really full PSP games, the ones that run you $40 or more, you're getting fantastic graphics and you're getting, I think, a top-notch portable gaming library. However, with the launch of the PSP Go, there's also a new category of games called PlayStation Minis, and these games are very similar to what's found on the App Store. In fact, some of the titles even overlap, as I'll show you in a minute. So this round is going to focus on gaming, it's going to focus on navigation, and it's going to focus on some of the hardware. So let's start with the hardware and let's talk about what you look at most, the screen. The PSP Go has a 3.8-inch screen with a resolution of 480 by 272. The iPhone and iPod Touch have a 3.5-inch screen, so a little bit smaller, but higher resolution at 480 by 320. I think Sony and Microsoft are competing for the wallets of a very similar demographic. The iPhone is going to run you anywhere from $199 to $299 on contract. The iPod Touch anywhere from $199 to $399, and the PSP Go comes in at $250. So there definitely is an overlap in price there. Let's go in and talk about games in particular. So I mentioned earlier these PlayStation Minis, and you can see right here I'm in the PlayStation Store taking a look at some of the minis that are available. So right now there are only a few that are available. One of them in particular stood out for me, and that is right here, Hero of Sparta. That's a game that's been very popular for the iPhone and iPod Touch. So one thing to note, the game here is $6.99 from the PlayStation Store. If you look at the App Store, for example, the game is marketably cheaper, coming in, I believe it's on sale right now, even for $1.99. Go back and see I've searched for Hero of Sparta. So there's definitely a big difference in price, but is there a big difference in the quality of the game? Well, let me show you real quickly what the graphics on both look like, and you can be the judge, and I'll offer my opinion since it might not be the fairest reflection that shows up on film. Okay, so we've got Hero of Sparta loaded up on both consoles here, the iPhone 3GS of course, and the PlayStation Go, and right away you can see the difference between the PlayStation's larger screen and the iPhone's. I don't see much of a difference resolution-wise despite the iPhone's higher resolution. I will tell you that navigating around on the iPhone without any physical buttons can be a bit difficult. For example, here you've got to use a virtual joystick, whereas on the PSP Go you can actually rely on a physical analog stick, which makes things a lot easier, in my opinion. For button control, you have to deal with virtual buttons on screen since you can't use any of the iPhone's physical buttons for navigation and gameplay, whereas on the PSP, obviously you get the traditional circle, triangle, X, and square buttons, which does make gameplay, I think, a bit easier. But taking the navigation aside, from a purely graphical standpoint, I think you are getting slightly better graphics on the PSP Go. And I think that would make sense since the PSP Go is really built primarily for a gaming machine, whereas the iPhone 3GS and the iPod Touch, I think, just happen to play games. So if you're looking for a specifically gaming perspective, I think that you are getting a little bit better graphics on the PSP Go. Now that said, performance-wise, the game ran just as fast on each. So it's really going to come down to, I think, a personal perspective on whether you want something that can do a little bit of everything, like the iPhone or the iPod Touch, or whether or not you want a dedicated gaming console, like the PSP Go. I will say, though, Hero of Sparta is a very fun game, so give it a download if you'd like. Although I'm not so sure the little bit of added graphics is worth the ridiculously additional price that you have to pay for the PSP Go. So let's go ahead and back out of here and go back to the home screens of each device. So quite obviously, by looking at both devices, you can clearly see the difference like I just mentioned. Physical buttons versus non-physical buttons. Now you're also dealing with a touchscreen versus a non-touchscreen. So things like text entry on the PSP Go can be a little bit difficult because you have to rely on a virtual keyboard that you have to control by moving the arrows around. Whereas on the iPhone and the iPod Touch, you can actually touch the buttons. It makes typing a lot easier. And that's going to come into play for things like the browser. Now the browser and video quality and music functionality, I'm going to show you in future rounds. For right now, I wanted to focus just on gaming. So it's really going to come down to personal perspective, like I mentioned. Whether or not you want lower cost, more option games, or whether you want the higher cost, dedicated games that you can get on the PSP Go. Now, I just showed you the PS Minis, but you also get, like I said, a vast category and a vast library of dedicated PSP games, which are not minis, but full-scale games, which are definitely going to be more expensive, around the $40 range, but you are going to get great graphics, online play, and a ton of other features. So I hope you enjoyed this round one. Stay tuned to future rounds for a lot more detail. For exclusive content, be sure to check out the channel. We're going to have a lot more coverage on these two devices. And check me out on Twitter, twitter.com/John4Lakers. And to learn more about TechnoBuffalo, check out technobuffalo.com. All those links will be in the sidebar. And I will see you guys in the next video.